Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Today I want to talk about the Nintendo GameCube, more specifically one of my favorite games on the system that I thought was very misunderstood. It didn't get the love it deserves. It just so happens that this game is part of a bigger story that I found fascinating at the time on the GameCube. Now if we take ourselves back to like late 2002, Nintendo GameCube was struggling against the competition. This is the last time that Nintendo chose to go head-to-head with raw power. The years following, we see the Nintendo Wii with a gimmicky motion controller that was pretty cool at the time, 3D, which I absolutely love, but the GameCube focused on raw power. It was more powerful than the PS2, very close to the Xbox in terms of raw processing power, so it was a very powerful system for the time, and they were struggling. Nintendo was having a lot of problems securing third-party support. Capcom made a huge announcement, Capcom 5. They pledged their support for the GameCube. Resident Evil is going to be exclusive to the system. They were going to do a brand new entry in Resident Evil 4. They were going to do the Resident Evil 0 that was supposed to come out in the 64 years back. They already had the port or the remake of the Resident Evil 1, and they were going to put over 2 and 3, 4 being brand new, and it was a part of this huge announcement of this Capcom 5. 5 brand new exclusive GameCube titles that were going to take this system to the next level. Unfortunately, something went very wrong. It did not work out as planned in the least. The Capcom 5 proved to be a huge financial disaster for Capcom. It was horrible for Nintendo. It made other third parties leery of putting out exclusive content on the GameCube, and overall was a failure. Now, me personally, I was most upset by the game that never even came out. Out of all the games, to me, Dead Phoenix sounded the most badass. You play as this like winged superhero named Phoenix who would like fly around and shoot dragons and demons and mythical creatures. Billed as like a Panzer Dragoon style game, like an on-rail shooter where the Capcom said the land was like full of dragons and mythical creatures, and it looked great. Sadly, never came out. Other games that did come out, now Resident Evil 4, no one can deny, was a game changer. It looked amazing on the GameCube. It introduced the world to a brand new kind of play style, over the shoulder, run and gun style gameplay. It changed the whole control scheme for Resident Evil for the better. It made it almost impossible to go back to the tank controls after those smooth controls. Now Resident Evil 4 definitely sold well and was an amazing game. So Resident Evil 4 was a success, but it wasn't enough. Now other games in the Capcom 5, Beautiful Joe I thought was a great game. 2D, 3D-ish kind of beat 'em up where you play as Joe, taking place in like movie land. You could do all these kinds of badass combos, and you had these special powers to kind of slow down time, and other really cool special abilities. It was a great game. I loved the playability of it. It was a great stylized action game. Unfortunately, it just didn't do enough. This ended up getting ported over to the PlayStation as well, and the sequel came out, I think, multi-platform. Killer 7 is my kind of game. Very odd, very strange. This ended up launching the career of Suda51. After this, he was able to make No More Heroes and a few other games, and then Shadows of the Damned, which teamed up with Shinji Mikami once again. But by the time this came out, this was released on both the PlayStation 2 and GameCube, so another lost exclusive of the Capcom 5. This game was so out there and so odd that it didn't really appeal to the mainstream, so it sold underwhelmingly and was not financially successful. So my personal favorite out of the Capcom 5, and the only game that stayed exclusive and stayed true to the original vision of what the Capcom 5 was supposed to be, was product number 3, PNO3 for short. Now this is done by Shinji Mikami. He is the first person to admit that he was rushed with this game. He didn't get the proper time that he needed, so a lot of it is kind of rough around the edges, and I get what some of the criticisms are, but for me, I just absolutely fell in love with the game, shortcomings and all. What was billed as kind of like a Devil May Cry-ish kind of vibe they wanted to go with originally, with guns and kind of fast-paced gameplay, turned into something very different. Guns were changed to like hand cannons, and the gameplay was more of almost like a ballet, dancing, dodging, shooting, because you can't run and shoot at the same time. So it's all about shooting, picking when to shoot, and then kind of dodging out of the way with Vanessa's dance-like animations and moves. Very sexy, stylized action that I really was just a huge fan of. I loved the suits. She was detailed, very curvy. I loved the way she kind of bobs her head to the music. I loved the way she moves around and twirls in these dance-like moves, avoiding gunfire. Playing as Vanessa Schneider, who is a freelance mercenary, and she gets kind of hired for these different jobs around the galaxy. Turns out these robots called cams have gone berserk, and she's been hired by this client to destroy these cams, which were rumored to have also killed her parents, so it's kind of a twofold mission. Story's not going to win any awards, but it's just the implementation of the gameplay. You can get different suits in between levels and use these points, and you can get these different suits and upgrade them, and I just absolutely fell in love with the game, the character. I don't know what it is. It's not the best game. The controls are very sloppy, and even the game's creator himself took his experience with this game and his next game, when he formed his new company, they did Vanquish. He was able to implement a lot of the stuff he had in mind for this game into Vanquish. So this is kind of like a pre-Vanquish Vanquish. So the ideas are there, the charm is there, the character is there. I absolutely love product number 3. It's not expensive. Definitely check it out. It represents a time when the GameCube was kind of seen as this re-emerging console with a whole new list of support from Capcom, exclusive games coming. It was going to take the system to new heights. Sadly, we only got 4 of the games. Everything else went multi-console. The one that stayed exclusive kind of got shit on by reviewers, so it was just a fucking disaster all the way around, unfortunately. But for fans, we definitely got a great game, and I really enjoy product number 3. Now, the aftermath of this disastrous Capcom 5 proved to benefit gamers after all. The employees that were so disgruntled with Capcom and unhappy with the way things were treated and handled and rushed, they ended up breaking off and forming their own studio, which eventually became Platinum Games. And in a nod to kind of save face from the Capcom 5 debacle, they announced their Platinum 3. And these games were all masterpieces in my opinion. They hit hard with Bayonetta, Infinite Space on the DS, and then Mad World on the Wii. This just goes to show you the kind of talent and dedication that these developers had to making their games great. This is what happens when they got their proper development time and total control, and they weren't rushed, and they weren't kind of pigeonholed into development times and budgets. These are amazing games, and they showed off the development team's talent. So it started off as kind of a second life and a second chance for the GameCube to kind of recover from its slow sales and turn it around into something more positive and more financially viable, and put the GameCube back on top. Turned into an epic disaster. It's a really fascinating story to go back and read and see what could have been if it was handled properly, and I really wish that Dead Phoenix would have come out, because that game looked badass. Thank you guys for taking a trip down memory lane and looking back at some of the GameCube's history. I've always wanted to talk about this topic as I love product number 3, and I really wish I could have played Dead Phoenix. So thank you guys for watching. GamezOfWar is absolutely nothing without you.